I never expected that $5 would teach me what 60 years of life never had. But there I was, Amelia Holloway, widow, former CEO of one of the largest real estate companies in the country, sitting on a public bus for the first time in 20 years, without a single dollar in my pocket. The irony, I could have bought that bus and the entire fleet, but in that moment, I was not even worth the fare. It was December 23rd, 6 in the evening. The Chicago cold cut into my face like a blade of ice. I just needed to cross the city. My driver, Gerald, was home, terribly sick with the flu, and I had a foundation meeting I could not miss. Simple, right? Call an Uber, a cab, anything. But traffic was unbearable, and when I saw that bus stopping on the corner, something inside me, maybe stubbornness, maybe curiosity, made me step onto it. That was when everything began. The driver was a tired man with hardened eyes and a worn-out uniform. He barely looked at me when I opened my purse. "Exact fare only, ma'am," he said, pointing to the illuminated sign above the turnstile. $2.50, coins or transit card. I rummaged through my bag, credit cards, car keys, imported lipstick, nothing that mattered there. I don't have cash." My voice came out small, almost embarrassed. "Do you take credit cards?" He let out a short, humorless laugh. "Lady, this is a bus, not a country club." I felt heat rush to my face. Behind me, a line of impatient people began to murmur. A woman sighed loudly. A teenager hit the door with his backpack. I was holding up the entire bus. "Please," I tried again, clinging to a dignity I no longer felt. "I just need to get to State Street. I can transfer the money later. I have a foundation. I can—" "Next!" he shouted, completely ignoring me. Something broke inside me. It was not anger. It was humiliation, pure and simple. I was about to step off, go back into the cold, call Maggie, beg for rescue, when I heard a small voice behind me. "Wait." I turned immediately. It was a boy, 10, maybe 11 years old, thin, wearing a worn blue coat that was too big for him. Huge, dark eyes, far too serious for his age. Beside him stood a woman, his mother, I realized, exhausted, wearing a cleaning uniform under a thin jacket. She had not noticed anything. She was staring off, lost in thought. The boy reached into his pocket. "I got it," he said softly, almost whispering. He pulled out a handful of coins and a crumpled bill. He counted slowly, carefully. $1, $2, $3, $5. He handed it to the driver. "For her," he said, pointing at me, "and for us too." The driver took the money without a word. The turnstile turned. He nodded. "Go." I stood there, mouth open, staring at the boy. I can't accept this," I began to say, but he was already guiding his mother toward the seats in the back. Before sitting down, he turned to me. He smiled, a small, shy, but genuine smile. "It's okay, ma'am. Merry Christmas." My chest tightened. I needed to know who that boy was. "Wait," I called, stepping toward him. "What's your name, sweetheart?" He hesitated, glanced at his mother, who still had not realized what had happened, and answered clearly, "Elijah Bennett, ma'am, but everyone calls me Eli." Then, with the awkward charm of a child trying to be funny, he pointed his thumb toward his mother and added playfully, "And that's Miss Sarah over there." His mother finally looked at him, frowning. "Eli, don't call me that," she said, though there was a tired smile on her lips. He shrugged, chuckled softly, and sat beside her. I etched those names into my heart. Elijah Bennett, Sarah. I sat on an empty seat near the front. My hands were shaking, not from the cold, from something else. When was the last time someone had done something like that for me? When was the last time someone had truly helped me? Not Amelia Holloway, the businesswoman. Not Richard Holloway's widow. Not the foundation president. Just a woman, stuck, in need of help. And a boy who clearly had nothing to spare, had given me everything he had. I stared out the fogged-up window. Christmas lights flickered in store windows. Red wreaths hung from lampposts. Families hurried by with shopping bags. I had forgotten what that felt like. Living among people, feeling the weight of their world. I reached into my purse, searching for something, anything. I needed to write it down. Remember, find that boy again. That was when I felt the paper. I pulled it out slowly. An old receipt, folded, from the Holloway Foundation, a donation I had signed months earlier. I looked at the address at the top, St. Michael Community Center, Ashford Street. That name. I knew that neighborhood well. I closed my eyes, and suddenly, I was 10 again. I flashed back 50 years, Ashford Street, winter of 1975. My mother and I lived in a rented room above a laundromat. The smell of soap and mildew clung to our clothes. At Christmas, we ate watery soup and shared a piece of bread. I remember looking at the lit-up holiday displays and dreaming that one day I would have enough, that no one would ever go without because of me. And I remember the day the bakery owner, Mrs. Chen, a Chinese immigrant who barely spoke English, gave me 3 coins and said, "For you, buy something warm." 3 coins. That bought a hot chocolate. That made me feel seen. I opened my eyes back to the present. The bus was stopping. "State Street!" the driver shouted. I stepped off quickly, then turned back. I searched for the boy. He was sitting beside his mother, looking out the window. He did not see me. The doors closed. The bus pulled away. And I stood there alone in the cold, holding that receipt, thinking about Elijah Bennett, Sarah. I needed to find him again. I called Maggie, my assistant, my friend, my conscience for 20 years. "Maggie," I said, still breathing hard, "I need you to do something for me." "Emilia, where are you? Gerald said you left without a driver." "Listen," I cut in, "I need information on a family. The boy's name is Elijah Bennett. His mother is Sarah. She works in cleaning, probably hospital or commercial." Maggie was quiet for a moment. "Okay. How do you want me to find that?" "You have contacts in the school system, right? Check enrollment records. They always ask for parent information, employment, emergency address. Look for a Sarah Bennett working in cleaning. It has to be in the boy's file." I heard Maggie exhale on the other end. "Emilia, what's going on?" "He helped me." My voice came out weaker than I wanted. "And I need to thank him. It's not a very common name. You'll find him." Another pause. "Okay," Maggie finally said gently. "I'll find out." The next day, Christmas Eve, Maggie called. "I found him," she said. "Elijah Bennett, 10 years old, enrolled at Washington Elementary. His mother, Sarah Bennett, listed as guardian. She works in hospital cleaning at Northwestern Memorial, day shift, and also has a second job as a gas station attendant at night." My chest tightened. 2 jobs, and still. "What's the address?" 147 Ashford Street. It's one of the areas we manage through the foundation. Ashford Street. Of course. I wrote everything down. "Maggie, you're an angel." "Emilia?" She hesitated. "There's one more thing." "What?" I checked the address in our system, just to be careful. My heart started racing. "And the family is in the eviction process." The world stopped. "What?" "Eviction. 3 months behind on rent. Court order issued. Execution date, December 26th. Heat rose in my throat. "Who is the landlord?" Silence. "Maggie, who is the landlord?" She sighed. "Holloway Properties, your company." I hung up. I sank into the chair in my office, that massive office with city views, expensive art on the walls, and shelves full of philanthropy awards. And for the first time in years, I cried. Not from sadness, from shame. That boy had given me his last $5, and I was about to take the roof over his head. I picked up the phone again, called Maggie. Cancel all my appointments until New Year's. Emilia, you have the charity dinner tomorrow, and the meeting with... Cancel everything, I repeated firmly. I have a miracle to make. Because if that boy could give everything he had, then the least I could do was the same. Before we continue this story together, I want to ask you for a small kindness, a simple good deed that helps me bring you more stories like this. If you're enjoying this so far, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. It helps me reach more people who, like you, believe that kindness and hope still matter. And at the end of the story, when we reach the Christmas miracle that's coming, leave a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. And if you'd like, rate this story from 0 to 10. If you want to explain why, that would be an incredible gift for me. That will be your good deed today, helping me improve, helping me tell stories that matter. Deal? I'm going to tell you how I was about to discover that fixing a mistake can be the hardest and most beautiful thing I've ever done. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't get those names out of my mind. Elijah Bennett, Sarah Bennett, 147 Ashford Street. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, that shy smile, his small hands offering the coins, the awkward way he joked by calling his mother Miss Sarah. And every time I opened my eyes, I saw the document on my desk. Eviction notice, Holloway Properties. My signature, well, not literally mine, but the company that carried my name. At 5 in the morning, I gave up on sleep. I got dressed, made coffee that was far too strong, and called Maggie. Emilia? It's 5 in the morning. I need you here, now. What? Maggie, please, she sighed. 20 minutes. When Maggie arrived, I had already spread all the documents across the desk. Contracts, spreadsheets, financial reports from Holloway Properties. She walked in holding 2 cups of coffee, one for her, one for me. You didn't sleep. It wasn't a question. I couldn't, I answered, far too troubled. She sat down, removed her glasses, and wiped them slowly. It was how she bought time when she wasn't ready to say what she was thinking. Emilia, what are you going to do? Cancel the eviction. You can't just cancel an eviction. There are legal processes, contracts, precedents. Maggie, I cut in firmly. I am the company. If I want to cancel it, I will. She crossed her arms. And the others? The other 53 evictions scheduled for this month? Are you canceling all of them too? The blow landed. She was right. Of course she was. I don't know, I admitted quietly. But this one I have to fix. Maggie looked at me for a long moment. Then she took her laptop, opened it, and started typing. Okay, let's start at the beginning. I need to understand the case. Pull the property file. It took 2 hours, 2 rounds of coffee, 3 calls to half-awake lawyers, a pounding headache. And in the end, the truth was simple and devastating. Sarah Bennett was 3 months behind on rent, not from irresponsibility, not by choice, but because the landlord had raised the rent by 40% without notice. She tried to negotiate. He refused. She tried partial payments. He refused. And when Holloway Properties bought the portfolio 2 years earlier in a transaction I didn't even remember approving, all those debts came with it. My stomach churned. Can this be reversed? I asked. Maggie hesitated. Legally? Yes, but it will draw attention. Questions will come up. Why this family? Why now? I don't care. Emilia, Maggie whispered, concerned. Maggie, my voice came out harder than I intended. That boy gave me $5. The last $5 he had, and I'm supposed to take his home 2 days after Christmas. Silence. Maggie closed the laptop. Okay, I'll prepare the documents. Temporary suspension of eviction for administrative review. That gives us 30 days. And after that? She looked me in the eyes. After that, You'll have to decide what you really want to do." At 10 in the morning, I grabbed my coat. "Where are you going?" Maggie asked. "Ashford Street." "Emilia, you can't just show up there." "I'm not showing up. I just want to see." She sighed, but didn't stop me. I drove slowly down Ashford Street. It was so different from how I remembered it. Before, there were small shops, families on the sidewalks, children playing. Now, abandoned buildings, broken windows, trash piled on the corners, and there, at number 147, was their home. Not exactly a house. Half of a duplex. Faded red brick, a roof missing shingles, a crooked wooden staircase leading to the front door. But something made me stop. A Christmas tree. Small, made from dry branches tied with string, decorated with scraps of aluminum foil and old ribbon bows. It sat in the front window, lit by a single bulb, and it was the most touching thing I had seen in years. I was about to leave when the door opened. It was him. Eli, wearing the same blue coat, holding a grocery bag heavier than he was. He walked carefully down the stairs, as if afraid of dropping something. I slid down in my seat. I didn't want him to see me. He crossed the street, entered a small corner store. 10 minutes later, he came back with a carton of milk, a loaf of bread, and— Wait. He was smiling, talking to someone I couldn't see, gesturing, laughing. Then Sarah appeared in the doorway, still in uniform. She must have just come back from her shift. Eli ran to her, handed over the bags, and she embraced him, that tight, desperate hug mothers give when they're trying not to fall apart. I saw her lips move. "Thank you, baby." He replied with something that made her laugh. They went inside together, the door closed, and I stayed there, hands gripping the steering wheel, shaking. I returned to the office. Maggie was waiting. "So?" "I want to know more," I said, taking off my coat. "Everything. About her. About the family. Work history. References. Everything." Maggie nodded and turned back to her computer. Half an hour later, she handed me a folder. Sarah Bennett, 35 years old, single mother. Works as a cleaning aide at Northwestern Memorial for 7 years. Second job as a gas station attendant, night shift. No debt other than the overdue rent. No criminal record. Impeccable references. I opened the folder. Inside was a printed photo from her hospital ID badge, and my heart stopped. I flipped through frantically. Employment history. And there it was, 2009, 2010, domestic employee, Holloway residence. My God. "Maggie," my voice came out hoarse. "She worked for me." Maggie frowned. "When?" 15 years ago, right after Richard died. I hired several people to help in the house. Sarah Bennett. I remember her. And then the memory came rushing back, sharp and cruel. It was the winter of 2010. I was still grieving. The house felt too big, too quiet. Sarah was young, quiet, efficient. She handled everything without needing to be asked, until the day a diamond bracelet went missing. I accused her, not directly, but I called the agency manager, asked questions, raised suspicions. Sarah was fired without explanation, and 3 months later, I found the bracelet. It had fallen behind a dresser. I should have called her. I should have apologized. But I didn't. I had other things on my mind. Other problems. And a dismissed employee, well, she wasn't my responsibility, right? That's what I thought back then. "Oh God," I whispered, clutching the folder. "I ruined her life." Maggie said nothing. I ruined her life. And now I was about to take her home too. "Emilia," Maggie said gently, "you can't fix the past. But I can fix the present." She looked at me, worried. "How?" I stood up, walked to the window. The city stretched below, buildings, lights, people rushing home to spend Christmas with the ones they loved. And I thought of Eli, his smile, his courage. I'm going to talk to her, I decided. In person. I'll tell her who I am. I'll ask for forgiveness, and I'll fix this. Emilia, she may not want to hear you. I know, but I have to try. It was Christmas Eve, 7 in the evening. I drove back to Ashford Street. This time, I didn't hide. I climbed the crooked steps, knocked on the door, waited. The door opened, and there she was, Sarah Bennett, older, more tired, but it was her. She looked at me, and by the way her eyes widened, I knew she recognized me immediately. Mrs. Holloway. Her voice was low, disbelieving. Hi, Sarah, I said, trying to smile. I came to speak with you. She didn't move, just stood there, gripping the door, staring at me. About what? I swallowed. About something I should have done 15 years ago. Silence. And then, behind her, I heard a familiar voice. Mom, who is it? Eli appeared in the doorway, and when he saw me, his face lit up. It's the lady from the bus. Eli's smile hit me like a punch to the chest. The good kind, the kind that hurts because it's too pure, too real. Mom, it's her, he repeated, bouncing on his toes. The lady I told you about. Sarah looked at me, then at her son, then back at me. And I watched the confusion on her face turn into something more dangerous. Distrust. Eli, go inside, she said firmly. But Mom? Inside. His smile faded. He looked at me, as if trying to understand what he had done wrong, and disappeared into the house. Sarah crossed her arms. She said nothing. Just waited. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure she could hear it. Sarah, I began, my voice trembling. I know you have no reason at all to listen to me. I know I showed up here without warning on Christmas Eve, and that this is strange. But I need to talk to you, please. She kept staring at me. About what? Her voice was cold, controlled. About 2010, about the bracelet, about everything. I saw her chin tremble, just a little, but enough. You came here for that? 15 years later, she said sharply. I found the bracelet, I said quickly, before I lost my nerve. 3 months after you left. It was behind the dresser. You didn't steal anything. And I never apologized. Silence. The cold wind blew between us. I heard the sound of Christmas music coming from somewhere down the street. Silent night. Sarah took a deep breath. She wiped the corner of her eye with the back of her hand. You ruined my life, she said softly, but every word cut. No one would hire me anymore. I had to lie on my resume, invent references, take jobs that paid half of what I used to make. And you never even called. I know, I whispered, and I'm so sorry, more than I can say. Why now? She asked, anger surfacing. Why are you here now? I could have lied. I could have made up a pretty excuse. But I looked at her. At that woman who had worked 2 jobs for years, who had raised a child alone, who had been accused unjustly and never gave up. And I decided she deserved the truth. Because your son helped me, I said, on the bus. He gave me his last $5. And when I found out who you were, when I realized I could fix at least one thing, I couldn't just walk away. Sarah went very still. You found out who we were? She repeated slowly. Yes. And how did you find out? I swallowed hard. I asked my assistant to look into it. She found the address through Eli's school. I wanted to thank him. Sarah took a step back. You investigated my son. It wasn't like that. You investigated my family, without permission, without asking. Sarah. And now you show up here on Christmas Eve saying you want to fix things? Her voice rose. What do you want, Mrs. Holloway? To feel better about yourself? To clean your conscience. No, I said louder than I meant to. I want to help. Then help me, she exploded. Help me not get evicted tomorrow. Help me not lose the only thing my son still has. A roof, a home, a Christmas. She stopped, realized what she had said. I saw the moment her anger turned into panic. Wait, she whispered. How do you? I closed my eyes and said, the property. It belongs to Holloway Properties. I found out yesterday. Sarah staggered, grabbing the doorframe. You. Her voice broke. You own it. I didn't know, I said desperately. I swear, I didn't know it was you. The company has hundreds of properties. I don't track each. Leave. Now. Sarah, get out of my house. Tears streamed down her face, and once again I saw her break, truly break. Please, I begged, let me explain. No, she screamed. You took my job. You ruined my reputation. And now you're going to take my home. You have no right to show up here pretending you care. She slammed the door in my face, and I stood there alone in the cold, listening to her sobs on the other side. I went back to the car, sat down, gripped the steering wheel, and cried. I cried for the first time in years, the ugly, desperate kind that makes your whole body shake. Because she was right. I had no right. My phone rang. It was Maggie. So, how did it go? Terrible, I managed between sobs. Emilia, she hates me, Maggie, and she's right. Silence on the other end. What are you going to do now? I wiped my face, took a deep breath. I'm going to fix this. Really, not my way. The right way. I got home close to midnight. The house was dark, silent, too big, too empty. I turned on the living room lights. The Christmas tree, bought by decorators, adorned by professionals, perfectly symmetrical, glowed in the corner. I looked at it and thought about Eli's tree, made of branches, twine, and hope. And I knew what I had to do. I called Maggie at 2 a.m. Emilia, it's Christmas Eve. I need you to do something. Now. Now. She sighed. Okay, go ahead. Thank goodness my salary is worth it, she said with irony. I want to cancel the eviction. Permanently. Not a temporary suspension, a full cancellation. And I want the debt forgiven. Emilia, that's going to cost. I don't care how much. But the lawyers will ask. Tell them it's my order. Tell them it's Christmas. Tell them whatever you want. But I want the documents ready tomorrow morning. Tomorrow is Christmas. Then it'll be the best gift I've ever given. There was silence on the line. Anything else? Maggie asked, and I heard the tired smile in her voice. Yes, much more. I stayed awake all night, making lists, writing down who to call in the morning, calling in favors. By 6 a.m., everything was ready. Maggie arrived at 7, holding a thick folder. You're crazy, she said, but she was smiling. Probably. She handed me the papers. I signed every one, 10 pages, 15, 20. And when I finished, I looked at Maggie. Now comes the hard part. At 9 a.m., on Christmas morning, I went back to Ashford Street, but this time I wasn't alone. There was a truck behind me, and another behind that one. Maggie sat in the passenger seat. Are you sure about this? She asked. Absolutely. I parked, got out, walked up the steps, and knocked on the door again. This time, Eli opened it. His eyes went wide. You came back. Before I could answer, Sarah appeared behind him. Her face was swollen. She had cried all night. Mrs. Holloway, she said tiredly, please, just go away. I can't, I said, because I brought something. I don't want anything from you. I know, but I took a deep breath. Could you at least let Eli see? Sarah hesitated, looked at her son. Eli was staring at the street, at the trucks, the men unloading boxes. "Mom, what's happening?" Sarah frowned, stepped onto the porch, and stopped. Because the men were carrying a Christmas tree, a real one, big, full, beautiful, and boxes, dozens of boxes. What is this?" Sarah whispered. "It's Christmas," I said simply. Maggie stepped forward, holding the folder. "Mrs. Bennet," she said, formal but kind. "My name is Margaret Chen. I'm Mrs. Holloway's assistant. I'm here to deliver some documents." Sarah looked at me, confused. "What documents?" Maggie opened the folder and pulled out the first paper. "Official cancellation of the eviction process, signed this morning. No fees, no penalties, no conditions." Sarah blinked. "Why, what?" "And this," Maggie continued, pulling out another paper. "Full forgiveness of the rental debt, 3 months, cleared." Sarah's legs seemed to give way. She grabbed the porch railing. "Why?" "Because it was my mistake," I said. "The abusive increase, the charges, everything, and because I owed this to you 15 years ago." Tears streamed down her face. "Mrs. Holloway, I can't—" "And there's more," Maggie said gently. Sarah looked at her, stunned. Maggie pulled out an envelope. "The Holloway Foundation is launching a new program, full scholarships for children from the Ashford community. Eli was selected as the first recipient." "What?" Sarah's voice came out in a whisper. "Full coverage," Maggie explained. "School, supplies, uniforms, even college if he wants." Eli shouted, "Mom, did you hear that?" Sarah dropped to her knees, covered her face with her hands, and cried. I knelt beside her. "Sarah," I said softly, "I can't change the past. I can't give you back the 15 years you lost because of me, but I can try. I can try to give Eli a better future, and you, too." She looked at me through tears. "Why? Why are you doing this?" I smiled, a shaky, tear-stained smile. "Because your son taught me that courage is priceless, that kindness doesn't need a reason, and that I spent too much time forgetting who I was before I had all of this." I held her hand. "You reminded me where I came from, Sarah, and I want to help, not as charity, but as justice." Sarah sobbed. And then, slowly, she squeezed my hand back. "Thank you," she whispered. Eli jumped into her arms, then into mine, and there, on that broken porch, on Christmas morning, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Purpose. We spent the entire day there. The men set up the tree. Maggie organized the boxes, food, clothes, toys, everything a family could need. Eli ran non-stop, opening boxes, laughing, shouting with joy. And Sarah sat on the couch, holding a cup of hot tea, looking at everything like she was dreaming. "Is this real?" she asked me at one point, when we were alone in the kitchen. "It is," I assured her, "and it will stay that way. I'll make sure of it." She looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time. "You've changed." "No," I corrected, smiling. "I just remembered who I've always been." That night, when everything was done and the men had left, Maggie and I got ready to go. Eli ran to the door. "Miss Amelia," he called. I turned. He was holding something. A drawing, made with old crayons and wrinkled paper. It showed a gray-haired woman smiling, holding a boy's hand. Underneath, in crooked letters, "Thank you for the best Christmas ever." I knelt in front of him. "Can I keep this?" He nodded proudly. "It's for you." I hugged him tightly and whispered, "No. You gave me the best Christmas, Eli." In the car, Maggie glanced at me. "You're happy." "I am," I admitted, smiling. "Then it was worth it." "More than you can imagine." She laughed. "You know what's funny? What? You spent more energy in one day helping one family than in years managing millions. I looked out the window. The streets were lit, families walking together, children laughing. Maybe, I said slowly, that's because this is the only thing that really matters. Maggie smiled. Merry Christmas, Emilia. Merry Christmas, Maggie. And as we drove back, I held Eli's drawing in my lap. And for the first time in a long time, I felt at home. January arrived like a breath of hope. I didn't go back to my old routine, endless meetings, charity dinners where no one truly cared, automatic signatures on documents I never read. No. Now I woke up early with purpose. And everything started on Ashford Street. I went back without warning, without trucks, without a big production, just me, and a bag of warm bread I bought at the corner bakery. I knocked. Sarah opened the door in a robe, hair wet. She had just gotten out of the shower, probably after her night shift. When she saw me, she blinked in surprise. Mrs. Holloway. Emilia, I corrected, smiling. Please, call me Emilia. She hesitated, then smiled, small, tired. Okay, Emilia, what are you doing here? I lifted the bag. I brought breakfast. I thought we could talk. Sarah looked at the bag, then at me, then stepped aside, opening the door. Come in. The house felt different, not because of the gifts, still scattered around, half opened, half carefully saved, but because of life. Laughter came from the bedroom. Eli and another child, a neighbor, Sarah explained, playing with toy cars. Sarah made coffee. We sat at the kitchen table, an old wooden table, scratched but clean. So clean it shined. Thank you, she said suddenly. For what? For everything. For Christmas. For Eli's scholarship. For listening. I shook my head. I should be thanking you. For giving me a second chance. We sat in silence for a moment. A comfortable silence. The kind that only exists between people who've moved past pretending. Can I ask you something? Sarah said, stirring her coffee. Of course. Why do you live alone? The question caught me off guard. I have children. And grandchildren. But they have their own lives. And I chose to live alone. After Richard died, the house felt too big. But I couldn't leave. I was afraid of forgetting him, you know? Sarah nodded slowly. I understand. When Eli's father left, I kept the wedding ring for years. I thought if I threw it away, I'd be admitting I failed. And did you? She smiled. I sold it, paid 3 months of rent. We laughed together, and it was strange, a good kind of strange, to laugh like that. No filters, no formality. You know what I realized, I said, looking toward the window where Eli was playing. I built an entire empire trying to fill a void, and all it took was a 10-year-old boy giving me $5 to realize that what I was searching for had been here all along, in the small things. Sarah held my hand. You're welcome here, always. And in that moment, I knew. I had found more than a family to help. I had found a friend. The weeks passed. Eli started his new school in February, impeccable uniform, new backpack, and a smile so big I had to take a picture. But it wasn't easy. 1 week later, Sarah called me. Her voice was tense. Emilia, can you come here? What happened? It's Eli. He's not okay. I got there in 20 minutes. Eli was sitting on the couch, staring at the floor. Red eyes, wrinkled uniform. Hey, champ, I said, sitting beside him. What happened? He didn't answer. Sarah came closer, whispering, There was a problem at school. Some kids made comments about him being there because of charity. They said he didn't deserve it. My heart tightened. Eli, I said gently, look at me. He slowly raised his eyes. They said I'm only there because you feel sorry for me. His voice came out small and broken. That I'm not really smart. I held his shoulders. Listen to me. Do you know why you're at that school? He shook his head. Because you're brave. Because you help people even when you have nothing. Because you have a heart bigger than any classroom. And that, I pointed to his chest, that's what makes you special. Not money. Not a scholarship. You. Tears ran down his face. But what if they're right? What if I'm not good enough? Then you'll prove them wrong, I said firmly. Not to them. To yourself. Because when I was your age, they told me the same thing. That I'd never be anything. That poor girls didn't become businesswomen. Want to know what I did? He looked at me, hopeful. I proved them wrong, every day, with every decision, and you'll do the same. He wiped his face on his sleeve. You think so? I know so. And then he hugged me, hard, desperately. Thank you, Miss Amelia. Sarah was crying at the kitchen door. When our eyes met, she mouthed silently, thank you. But it didn't stop there, because a few weeks later, Maggie called me. Amelia, we have a problem. What kind of problem? Ashford Street. The city approved an urban revitalization project. They want to demolish half the buildings, including number 147. The ground seemed to vanish beneath my feet. What? How? Gentrification. They want to build higher-end condominiums. Families have 6 months to leave. But I'm the owner. They can't. They can, Maggie cut in, tired. Eminent domain. You'll be compensated. But the families, they'll need to find somewhere else. I hung up the phone, and for the first time, I felt real anger. I went straight to City Hall. No appointment, no warning. I walked past the receptionist, the secretary, and straight into the planning commissioner's office. Mrs. Holloway, he stood up, surprised. I didn't know you were. Cancel the Ashford project, I cut him off. He blinked. I'm sorry. Ashford Street, the revitalization project. Cancel it. He sat down slowly. Mrs. Holloway, with all due respect, that's not your decision. It is, I interrupted, leaning over his desk. Because those are my properties. Those are my families, and if you think you're going to push all those people out to build luxury condos, you're very mistaken. Ma'am, the project has already been approved. Then unapprove it. He sighed. It doesn't work that way. There are investors, contracts, political interests. How much? I asked. Excuse me? How much did they invest? He hesitated. 20 million. I'll pay 30, I said without blinking, and I'll buy the entire project, and I'll decide what happens to it. Silence. The commissioner stared at me like he'd seen a ghost. You're serious? Completely? He picked up the phone, made a call, then another and another. 2 hours later, I walked out of City Hall with a signed agreement. The project was mine, and I was going to turn it into something that truly mattered. I returned to Ashford Street at dusk. I knocked on number 147. Sarah opened the door, worried. Amelia, is everything okay? I heard that. It's all resolved, I said, smiling. No one is getting evicted. She looked at me, confused. How? I bought the project, and instead of luxury condos, we're building affordable housing and truly revitalizing what you already have here. This will be for everyone. Sarah covered her mouth with her hands. You did this. I did, because I learned something. Money only matters when you use it to change lives. She hugged me tightly and whispered in my ear, You're incredible. I held her back. No, I just learned from the right people, but not everything was perfect. Because one night, 3 months later, I received a call. It was Eli, crying. Miss Amelia? His voice was desperate. My mom, she's in the hospital. The world stopped. What? What happened? She collapsed at work. The doctor said it's exhaustion. But she hasn't woken up. I grabbed my keys, ran to the car, and as I drove to the hospital, only one thought kept repeating in my mind: please, don't take her from him. Not now. The hospital was too quiet. That kind of silence that weighs on you, that sticks to your skin, that makes every second feel like an eternity. I ran through the hallways, my heels echoing on the cold floor, until I found the waiting room on the 3rd floor. And there he was, Eli, sitting on a hard plastic chair, too big for him, his feet dangling, not touching the ground, red eyes, hands clenched together, alone. Eli, I called, my voice trembling. He lifted his head, and when he saw me, he fell apart. He ran to me and threw himself into my arms, sobbing. "She won't wake up," he cried into my shoulder. "They said she's too tired, that her body just stopped." I held him tightly, stroking his hair. "Shh. It's going to be okay. She'll be okay. How do you know?" He looked at me, desperate. What if she doesn't? I had no answer, no promise I could make, so I did the only thing I could. I stayed. The doctors explained. Sarah had worked double shifts for so long that her body had simply shut down. Severe dehydration, anemia, chronic exhaustion. She needs complete rest, the doctor said, adjusting his glasses. At least 3 months. No work, no stress. "And if she doesn't rest?" I asked. He looked at me seriously. "There could be permanent damage. Possibly even—" He stopped and glanced at Eli. I understood. "How much will the treatment cost?" With her insurance, about $20,000. Without insurance, "I'll pay," I cut in. "All of it. And I want the best specialists." The doctor blinked. "Mrs. Holloway, that's not necessary." "It is to me," I said firmly. "Make it happen." He nodded and left. Eli tugged on my sleeve. "Miss Amelia? You don't have to—" "I want to," I corrected, kneeling in front of him. "Your mother taught me that families help each other, and you are my family now." He wrapped his arms around my neck, crying again. But this time, the tears were of relief. Sarah woke up 2 days later, weak but awake. I walked into the room with Eli. He ran to her bed, grabbing her hand. "Mom, you're awake." She smiled, a weak smile, but real. "Hey, baby." Her voice was hoarse. "I'm okay." "You scared me," he whispered. "I know. I'm sorry." Then Sarah looked at me, and I saw gratitude in her eyes, but also something else, shame. When Eli left to get some water, she said, "I can't pay for this, Amelia." "I know." "Then why?" "Because you shouldn't have to choose between working yourself to death and caring for your child," I said, sitting in the chair beside her bed. "Because no one deserves that. Especially you." She turned her face away, trying to hide the tears. "I spent my entire life trying to prove I could do everything on my own, that I didn't need anyone. And look where that got me." "It got you an incredible son," I said gently. "It brought you here. And now you don't have to do it alone anymore." She looked at me. "What do you mean?" I took a deep breath. "I want to offer you a job." She frowned. "Amelia." "Wait," I raised my hand. "Hear me out. I'm creating a new department at the Holloway Foundation. It's called the Ashford Program. It will help families like yours, housing, education, healthcare. I need someone who understands these families, someone who's lived this, someone who truly cares. You want me to work for you. I want you to work with me," I corrected. "As a coordinator, a fair salary, full benefits, flexible hours. And most importantly, no night shifts, no working yourself into the ground." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you deserve it," I said simply. and because I learned that money only matters when it changes lives. And you changed mine." She cried, and then, slowly, she nodded. "Okay, I accept." 3 months later, Ashford Street looked different, not unrecognizable. It still had its soul, its spirit, the people who made it home. But now there was hope. Construction had begun, not luxury condos, but affordable apartments, decent homes, with community gardens, a playground for the kids, a community center with a library, and at the center of everything, a sign, Ashford Project, building futures, not fortunes. We held an opening celebration in November. The entire street was there. Families, children, neighbors, music playing, barbecues smoking, laughter everywhere. Sarah stood beside me, radiant, holding a clipboard, organizing everything with an efficiency that made me smile. She had changed, not physically. She was still the same strong, determined woman. But there was lightness now, as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. "Are you happy?" I asked. She looked at me and smiled, more than I ever thought I could be. "Welcome to the club." We laughed together. Then Eli came running, grabbing my hand. "Miss Amelia! Come see, come see! What is it? Just come." He pulled me toward the new playground. And there, painted on a colorful wall, was a mural, a huge, vibrant mural filled with life. And in the center, a gray-haired woman holding the hand of a small boy. Below it, in big letters, "Kindness changes everything." My throat tightened. "Eli, did you do this?" He shook his head proudly. "I had help, but I drew you, because you changed my life." I knelt in front of him and held his face in my hands. "No, sweetheart, you changed mine." And I hugged him, tight, with all the love my chest could hold. That night, after everyone had gone home, I sat alone for a moment, on a bench in the new community garden, watching the lights twinkle in the trees, hearing distant music, laughter, life. Maggie sat down beside me. "You did something incredible here," she said. "We did," I corrected. She smiled. "How do you feel?" I thought for a moment. "Complete," I finally said. "For the first time in decades, I feel complete. Richard would be proud." "I know," I whispered. "But more than that, I'm proud. Of myself, of what we built, of what this became." We sat in silence, a good silence. Then Maggie asked, "What's next?" "Next?" I smiled. "Next we expand." Ashford was just the beginning. There are other communities, other families, other Elis waiting for a chance. "You're going to change the world," Maggie said, laughing. "No," I corrected, looking at the lights. "But maybe we can change it for a few people. And maybe that's enough." It was Christmas Eve again, but this time I wasn't alone. I was in Sarah and Eli's new home, a small but cozy apartment in the newly renovated Ashford building. The Christmas tree glowed in the corner, a real tree, decorated with handmade ornaments, popcorn, and love. Eli was on the floor, building a Lego set. Sarah was in the kitchen finishing dinner. And I was sitting on the couch, holding a cup of hot chocolate, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Belonging. "Miss Amelia," Eli called. "Yes, sweetheart." "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." He walked over and sat beside me. "Do you remember when we met? On the bus?" "How could I forget?" "I was scared that day," he admitted softly. "I thought if I gave you that money, we wouldn't have enough for food. But Mom always said, 'Kindness first.' So I did it. I held his hand. And you changed my life because of it. But you changed mine," he said seriously. "You gave me a home, a school, a future. You gave my mom her smile back. Eli, I just wanted to say thank you, he continued, his eyes shining. For seeing us, for caring, for being family. I couldn't hold it in. I cried right there. The beautiful kind of crying, the kind that comes from too much happiness. You don't need to thank me, I whispered. You gave me something I didn't know I needed, a reason, a purpose, a family. He hugged me. Sarah appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on her apron, smiling with tears in her eyes. Dinner's ready, she said. Come. We sat at the table. We prayed together, something I hadn't done in years. We ate, we laughed, we told stories. And when we were done, Eli handed me a gift. It was small, a box wrapped in paper and a red ribbon. It's for you, he said shyly. I opened it carefully. Inside was a delicate pendant with two figures holding hands, a woman and a boy. Holding hands, representing the two of us. And with it, written in neat, careful handwriting, a card that read, To the woman who taught me that miracles are made of kindness, thank you for being my miracle. Love, Eli. I pressed it to my chest and cried. I'll keep this forever, I promised. Good, he smiled. Because you're stuck with us now. Sarah laughed, wiping her own eyes. He's right. You're not getting rid of us that easily. I don't want to, I said, looking at the two people who had become my family. Never. Years later, the Ashford program had expanded. 5 communities now, 200 families, 500 children on scholarships. And it all started with a boy on a bus. Eli was 15 now. He still wore that shy smile, but there was confidence in him, the kind that comes from knowing you matter. Sarah was now the general coordinator, managing teams, changing policies, being the voice for families no one listened to. And me, I still lived in my big house, but now it was full of photos, drawings, laughter. Because every single week, without fail, I had dinner with Sarah and Eli. Because they were never just a project, they became my family. I thought about everything that had changed. One boy, $5, a second chance, and a miracle born from the simplest thing in the world. Kindness. Thank you for listening until the end. And remember, you don't need to be rich to change a life. Sometimes all you need is $5 and courage. Merry Christmas, and may you be someone's miracle today.